Hey everybody, Ed here with the Digital Digest, and today I wanted to share my full review, the digitally digested segment, for the Samsung Galaxy Tab 3 10.1. So of course this is the largest and most expensive refresh in the Galaxy Tab lineup, a 10.1-inch Android tablet powered by an Intel processor. It actually is an Atom chip, very similar to what's found in many budget Windows 8 machines and tablets, and you've got a gig of RAM, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, micro SD card slot for storage expansion. The resolution of this display is 1280 by 800, so certainly not going to break any records there. In fact, it won't live up to much of the competition even that's close to this price point, principally the Nexus 10, which is also made by Samsung, ironically, but of course the Nexus 10 does not incorporate this TouchWiz interface, which is what the Samsung brand is all about. Also, you may have noticed many of the design cues are pulled straight from the Galaxy S4, much like every lineup, or tablet rather, in the Galaxy Tab 3 lineup. So that's inclusive of this, the 7-inch and the 8-inch, and even the Note 8.0. So all of those really borrow their looks, at least at face value, from the very popular Galaxy smartphones that many of us own, including myself. My daily driver is a Note 2. However, when it comes to the actual hardware that's under the hood, that's where they just unfortunately don't live up to the same reputation. So even though we've got very similar software, very similar notification system, this is the same one you'll find on the 7-incher, you know, Samsung bringing everything into the notification bar, which is handy, no question about it. You can easily still get to your regular settings from there. Go ahead and jump down to the About device, and you can see we're running version 4.2.2, something we still haven't been updated to on the 7-inch version, so clearly a little bit more attention to the 10.1-inch Galaxy Tab 3. Physical buttons at the bottom, reminiscent of all of their smartphones, which is a good thing. I like that personally. Doesn't eat into screen real estate, something I will say about all of the third-gen Galaxy Tabs, because quite frankly I prefer it. You also have quick access to things like Google Now using the settings button generally. Apparently it wasn't working there. There it works. And those are, you know, just quick features, nothing interesting or unique. You can also create folders. These are part of the things you can do with a Samsung tablet that you're not going to see from your average manufacturer. Even the actual keyboard is another customizable element. That's part of the value-added benefit you get of picking up a TouchWiz overlay from Samsung. And I can't believe I'm saying that, but I am. It is a value-added bonus. That's when it doesn't actually kill the device. You can do some text recognition. So there are different features within the keyboard functions there that are nifty. You can actually do floating keyboards, split keyboards. So there are a lot of different configurations that generally you'd actually have to spend more money to get that Samsung gives you. But this isn't new. Samsung's been doing this for a while. In terms of the overall performance for browsing the web and video, it's solid. There's no question about that. Even though the Intel chip isn't my favorite, in fact, it's outperformed, as I mentioned before, by the Nexus 10. And the Nexus 10 is pushing a lot more resolution than this with a dual-core A15 chip. So that tells you a lot about how much more powerful that dual-core chip is than this Atom processor. But this Atom processor still will get you between 8 and 10 hours of battery life, which is very respectable. You're not going to have a problem playing back HD content, enjoying your music, browsing the web. Full Polaris Office, another benefit of having the software package suite from Samsung. In terms of other applications that come installed, because this is bare bones stock here as it comes out of the box, that's what I want to demonstrate for all of you out there, not how to modify it and necessarily tweak it unless it needs to be tweaked, which that's one of the nice things about Samsung. Out of the box, these polished tablets run as they should for the most part. However, this current generation, because the hardware is a little bit lacking compared to what I think most of us expect from Samsung, does leave you hoping for more in the performance department. And a lot of that has to do with the processor and 1 gig of RAM, as opposed to the 2 gigs of RAM industry standard now, at least for most devices, especially at this $400 price point. I mean, even if you go with something like the Note 8, there you're getting an Exynos chip combined with 2 gigs of RAM. So much better performance out of that tablet, which is less money than this, but of course less screen real estate. But you also have the added bonus of the S Pen. This also, of course, shares the infrared remote control feature that all Galaxy Tab 3s have, so keep that in mind. But that's fairly basic these days for the Galaxy Tab lineup. In terms of included software, the camera, bare bones, nothing impressive. Dropbox is integrated. Flipboard, of course, on every tablet these days. Samsung's Game Hub, as well as their music store, as well as they have all of their own content stores at this point. And you also get Google's content store, Samsung's own app store, S-Voice, which is pretty much garbage. I'm not going to even touch that. Polaris Office is really the best app they're giving you for free out of the box. Beyond that, Watch On is a companion to use for the infrared remote, which works quite well. That, along with Peel, is what you'll be using to navigate your local programming when controlling your television. So that's definitely a good thing to have with it, because the only other tablet that works in that form right now is the Xperia Tablet Z. But there's no question, if you're looking at this tablet and that tablet, you go with the Sony, because for the $100 more, you're getting much better hardware, as well as, in my opinion, the waterproofing is just a bonus. It's just a much nicer tablet, in my opinion, design-wise as well. The entire Galaxy Tab 3 lineup, I don't hate them, but they really remind me of Apple, because they are literally oversized versions of the Galaxy lineup of smartphones. For many users, that will be ideal because they love their Galaxy smartphone, and that's exactly what Samsung is betting on. However, the only arena I'm a fan of that type of replication is when it comes to their Note lineup. The Note 8 is a great tablet. The current Note 10, as well as its successor, I know is going to be a phenomenal piece of hardware, as well as the larger Note that we'll see down the road. So those are really promising to me compared to this lower end, very price-oriented, and I don't want to say it's corner cutting, but again, the exterior is the only thing that speaks to the brand, and of course the software. These internal components have just been a mishmash across all of Samsung's third-gen tabs. They all have different hardware, and all of them run, as a result, different or deliver different experiences. This is the best of the group, and it's still a bit of a letdown, in my opinion. Speakers have moved to the side of the tablet. They're no longer front-facing like we had with the last generation or with the Nexus 10. As a result, audio can get muffled by your hands holding the tablet, something that just doesn't happen on last gen. So that's a little disappointing, but that's really, I'm looking for something on that. Really, I'm more concerned with the hardware downgrade, in my opinion. This is, again, a lateral move. This performs in line, really close with the Tegra 3. So if you own a Tegra 3-based tablet, I can't really make an argument to move to something like this unless you really want to just know that Samsung's going to give you another year of TouchWiz updates, because that's really what this represents. Of course, you do have the infrared remote, but again, that's not the primary selling feature for any tablet, let alone a 10-inch one. In my opinion, those infrared remotes are much better found on mobile 7 and 8-inch tablets than the larger 10-inch tablets, which, even though they may sit with you on the couch, they're still just a little bit clunky to hold and actually use as a remote control. But everything else that's there, Paper Artist, these are all apps that, if you are a Samsung user, you're used to. In terms of widgets, you also get some custom widgets. And if you see a little bit of lag here, that has to do with the hardware, as I keep mentioning. We're not using the latest and greatest. We're not even using a Snapdragon S4 Pro. The Nexus 7 hardware with that underclocked S600, which is an S4, but it's an underclocked S600, is a much better processor. The 2 gigs of RAM, everything you're going to find in the Nexus 7 at $229 is going to outperform this tablet, and do so on a higher resolution screen. But of course, I'm comparing apples to oranges, because one is a 7-inch, this is a 10-inch. But you do get all the creature comforts of Samsung's Galaxy lineup in this device, which is nice. And that's embodied by just a problem-free experience when the hardware's there. As I've mentioned before here, the hardware really isn't. With regard to cameras, the cameras are just okay. Much like most of the Galaxy Tab 3rd Gen, the front and rear are low res. You're looking at 1 and 3 megapixels respectively, and they really don't do anything to impress, unfortunately. These cameras aren't going to win any contest, even though I'm the first one to say I'm not a big fan of using tablets as a photographic tool. In the event that you really are forced to, this simply is just not one of the better performers, unfortunately. And that 3 megapixel, 1.3 megapixel standard is there across every single one of the 3rd gen Galaxy Tabs. So you just can't escape it if you're looking to get that Galaxy experience. So really what it comes down to is that if you must have the Galaxy brand and experience, the form factor, the look, the feel, and don't get me wrong, I'm a very big Samsung fan. Again, my daily driver is the Note 2, great phone. Even though Samsung has been manufacturing all of their tablets and phones out of plastic, they still perform really well. Their QC is some of the best in the business, meaning you're going to get the least occurrences of backlight bleed, dead pixels, at least in my experience, especially when the tablets come out of their Korean factories. They just tend to be top notch. Unfortunately, this third gen, really they have, just gone through nitpicking every piece of hardware to make sure that they have the best margins possible. And unfortunately, that doesn't end up resulting in a great experience for us, the end users. So at a lower price, I think this tablet will do well. What that price has to exactly be, I'm not sure. It might need to drop down to $300 in the very immediate future just to have a real resale ability. In terms of what I think it's really worth, I really don't think this is worth more than maybe $200 to $250. So not a glowing review of this tablet, much like the third generation Galaxy Tab line. Samsung making it very clear, in my opinion, if you want high-end specs, you have to price yourself into their Note lineup. And their Note lineup still hasn't seen a refresh. We do have the Note 8, but the 10 and larger sizes yet to come out. That'll feature the Exynos 5, which will have some amazing performance from what I've seen. So good things coming from them there. The Exynos processor is now an Octa chip, so really the performance should be unparalleled to what we're seeing, especially in this form factor, and probably close to it in price. I only imagine that that's going to be $100 more, the new Note 10. We'll see that coming in at $500. So if you must have the Samsung Galaxy experience, wait it out, folks. Wait for the new Note, even if you don't care about the S Pen integration. It will have a higher res screen, better processor, more RAM, more of everything. We may even see NFC. I hope that we do. They did omit that from the Note 8. I would like to see NFC. As far as the actual web browsing performance, give you a little bit of HTML playback here from my own channel. I know I've done a lot of talking about performance and what you get at the price, but let's actually see some actual playback. And here with Digital Digest, and today I wanted to share a quick update on my experience with the new Google Nexus 7. Now, of course, this is the second gen. Let's skip ahead, see how it handles buffering. Blown me away. Build quality was what I was most worried about, and quite frankly, the build quality has been solid. I've got a little bit of a creak in the backside. And you can see it's keeping up, but performance is far from stellar. That's what I will say. Get it in one device. A lot of people would have argued that the original Nexus 7 accomplished that, but this extra resolution and overall just the color accuracy. And for those of you wondering about battery life, I have had the screen on the highest brightness level throughout the course of this video. We're 13 and a half minutes now into, so keep that in mind when trying to assess or ballpark battery life figures and wonder if I'm being truthful, because I am. It does depend on usage. We were nearly at the brightness, the full brightness. So as I say, I'm being truthful. I thought I had it at full. Now we're completely full, but negligible difference in terms of battery drain. I mean, once you really get past 50% on any tablet, you're taking it into another direction. I think that should have given or delivered a pretty good example of audio and video playback. Again, this is not a 1080p or 1200p display, so you're not getting high pixel density. Speaker performance, even though they've moved them to the side, still pretty strong. I do like that you've got that standard micro USB for charging and host capabilities. That is one of the big advantages going across all of the third-gen Galaxy Tabs when compared to their predecessors. However, most tablets these days now operate, whether it's the Sony Xperia Tablet Z or the Nexus line, all of them are using micro USB to charge and for host capabilities, and for video out in most instances as well. So overall, this is a decent tablet. First outing for Intel and Samsung. A partnership I'm sure that will continue to get developed over time, but right now, like I've said through the course of the video, if you must have the Galaxy experience, please wait. Do yourself a favor. You can also enable a swipe-like keyboard in here. I'm just going to go to another web page, another example of the browsing capability. As some of you may have seen with my Galaxy Tab 3.7 video, performance was pretty bad. This performs better, and that's to do with the fact that you're paying more and getting that Intel chip. But the Intel chip is still really nothing, not that much better, I'll say, than a Tegra 3, really, when it comes to real-world performance. So that should tell a lot of you what you need to know about the actual performance to get out of this, because that's really what it comes down to. You know, how fast is your web browsing going to be? How fast are things going to buffer? What is video playback going to be like? How are the speakers going to perform? The webcams, and of course, battery life. This is a Wi-Fi only tablet. It only has so many functions, and it really comes down to being a media consumption device. And in that arena, it does well, but at its price point, it is very expensive. You're definitely, like Apple, paying for the Samsung name, paying for their marketing, and paying for their reputation more so than the hardware, and especially anything far, or close, I should say, to bleeding edge performance, because there's nothing in here that delivers that, except for maybe the TouchWiz environment, arguably, from big Samsung fans. So overall, I like the infrared, I like the form factor, but wait for the new Note, in my opinion, even if you don't care about the S Pen, because this tablet is solid, but it needs to basically get halved in price, especially with the new standards that the Nexus 7 have set for the marketplace in terms of hardware performance at a $230 and $270 respective price point. But overall, I do like this tab. It just needs to go down in price, or we need to at least see what the new Note is going to bring to the table. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to post them. And of course, as usual, please feel free to subscribe. Later.